Welcome to the School of Christian Mysticism on the 25th of July. This is our meditation, and to facilitate this we're returning to the text of the Gospel of Thomas. We use the version, the translation of Jean-Yves Leloup. We've already done the first 23 verses in earlier meditations, so today we're covering verses 24 to 28. And the structure of this will be that we'll first, the three of us, read through those verses, then we'll have a conversation about our first impressions. Then we'll read through the verses again. And this time approach it through more of a Lectio Divina way of focusing on those bits that particularly stand out for us. Then we'll have a final reading to lead us into the Lectio Divina of our actual meditation on Monday. So we'll begin with the reading.
Beginning on page 21 and Logion 24. His disciples asked, "Teach us about the place where you dwell, for we must seek it." He told them, "Those who have ears, let them hear. There is a light within people of light, and they shine it upon the whole world. If they do not shine it, what darkness?" Yeshua said, "Love your brother and sister as your soul. Protect them as you do the pupil of your eye."
Yeshua said, "You see the sliver in your brother's eye, but you do not see the log in your own eye. when you remove the log from your eye, then you will see clearly enough to remove the sliver from your brother's eye. Yeshua said, if you do not fast from the world, you will not find the kingdom. If you do not celebrate the Sabbath as a Sabbath, you will not know the Father.
Yeshua said, I stood in the midst of the world and revealed myself to them in the flesh. I found them all intoxicated, not one of them was thirsty. And my soul grieved for the children of humanity, for they are blind in their hearts. They do not see. They came naked into the world, and naked they will leave it. At this time they are intoxicated. When they have vomited their wine, they will return to themselves.
Quite powerful, that last verse. I'm finding the verses start with something quite sublime about there was a light. One of my favorite verses, that there's a light within people of light, and they shine it upon the whole world. And they do not shine it, what darkness? And then he seems to be unpacking almost what that darkness could be like. If you don't love your brother and sister as your soul and protect them as the pupil of your eye, you don't see the sliver in, or you don't see the log in your own eye. If you don't fast from the world, if you don't celebrate the Sabbath. And then he really spells it out in the 28th verse, it seems. I stood in the midst of the world and revealed myself to them in the flesh, even. And I found them all intoxicated, not one of them thirsty. And when they have vomited their wine, they will return to themselves. It's almost a expression of despair.
The disciples have asked us, show us where you dwell, was it at the beginning? Teach us about the place where you dwell, and Jesus could just say, he could just directly answer that question, I guess, but he appears like a spiritual guide or master in these sayings, and he's kind of, it's like, it seems like maybe he's saying something like, well, look, the purpose of being is that we are children of light in a world that is dark, and light needs to pour through us into the world, and bring light. And our sisters and our brothers, that is everybody, we are to treat them as our soul, and the place that we need to dwell is the holy place within us, that soul place. And so we need to keep the Sabbath as the Sabbath. We need to have this time. We need to go on the mountain and pray. We need to go down by the beach and pray. We need to we need to dwell in the silence, in the not solitude, in the source. Then we need to dwell in it, and this is where I dwell, and this is where I'm calling you to dwell. And to stand on the earth in flesh form and be rejected is tough. It's tough. It's not what you might want to be doing, but it's what you have to be doing, and you can only do it if you are naked, dwelling in the source. So to treat somebody, you can't help anyone, you can't shed the light unless you look at the splinter, the log in your eye before you start trying to correct anybody or lead them to light. So maybe it's just calling back to the centeredness, to the source. Dwell here.
It's quite challenging in a way, isn't it? There is light within people of light, and they shine it upon the whole world. If they do not shine it, what darkness? I mean, that is, if you look at that personally, that there should be light in a person of light, that one shines upon the whole world. That's quite a challenge, and you can't do that on your own, of course. The light is not your light. It's not. The ego doesn't have any light. The ego self is darkness, and it can only shine from the kingdom, the place where Yeshua dwells. The light has, and to find that we have to fast from the world, to not be intoxicated by the sensual pleasures of the world, but as Tim says, to be in our nakedness, to take off the clothing of the ego self and be naked to the world, vulnerable. There's that vulnerability.
The only way to expel the intoxicatedness of ourselves is vomiting in the end, isn't it? If you're drunk and you've mixed drinks or whatever and you're drunk, the only way to feel better is to be sick. But yeah, do you think that is the vomiting part is addressed to the disciples or to the followers of Christ, or is it just that he's, because sometimes when people are dying, particularly people who have really clung to identity and worldly possession and control and that kind of thing, there's a time when, and it can last for a couple of years or it can last for 5 minutes, it seems to me, but when there's a real vomiting going on of and people are rendered sometimes speechless for long periods of time after writhing and fighting, and that's almost like vomiting, and then it appears to me that there is a cleansing and peace, and that can be a very, very aggressive period, though, and like vomiting, maybe referring to. It has to be done, and maybe the followers are called to be some kind of agent in that vomiting, and vomiting ourselves. We certainly have all the worldly stuff going on as well.
The word that comes to mind as you say that, Tim, is purging, and purgation, or purgation being one of the stages on the path in one's practice, isn't it?
Yeah.
Awakening followed by purging, vomiting up the world, and
Yeah.
and we tend to think these days, don't we, that that's not just like once and forever. Well, constantly recycle through. But I was thinking of Hazrat Inayat Khan, actually. There's a story of when one of his followers, close followers, came in. Hazrat Inayat Khan was very unusually in a sort of distress, angry state, and he said, not one of my murids, not one of my followers is really invested in their practices, and so on. And the force of his anger apparently blew this man across the room. And that's just that it's a bit like this image here. It's like the sort of despair of don't. It's quite clear here. You see the log in your own eye. Don't look at the sliver in your brother's eye. Fast. Have periods of silence. And but you're not doing it. It's almost like you're intoxicated with the world.
Yeah. Sabbath is somewhere where we could practice purgation, and well, when we come into an act of worship, we very often in certainly in Anglican and Catholic traditions, Orthodox, confess our sins, don't we, early on, which is a kind of
yes.
And if we don't do these things, if we don't practice these things, then the pressure builds up until it's only the vomit left. Then that's the only way to. It's got to explode. And obviously, to be a child of light, if we're leaving it like that, then we're like Hazrat's disciples who would. We need to be thrown across the room to wake up. Did they wake up after that?
I don't know.
No.
It was a private, unusual complaint. Not to one of them that didn't practice, but the one that did. So
it was probably done for the purpose of waking them up, wasn't it?
I guess so.
And sorry, go on, Malcolm.
No.
I was just saying that I was thinking that absolutely Jesus is doing this in these logion, isn't he? Sometimes he's not predictable. It's not predictable at all, and he keeps just changing the just breaking through the guard of our intellect and our cozy programs, expectation.
Yes.
The Logion 26 is very familiar, of course, from the Synoptic Gospels, isn't it? The log in your own eye, and if we see the sliver in our brother's eye, then it's a real learning opportunity, isn't it? What we see in others is what's actually in ourselves.
Yes.
Um, so we can learn a lot about ourselves from dispassionately
Mm,
watching our own reactions, as in mindfulness, really.
mm-hmm,
Just dispassionately watching our own emotions and reactions
mm-hmm.
and recognizing that what we think of other people is actually a commentary on ourselves,
Mm.
Yes.
which when you really, really do that, that can be very alarming, very
Mm.
telling. Um,
It can be very sobering.
indeed. Sobering is a good word here, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
It can be a reason and an impetus not to practice as well, not to pray, isn't it? Because we are faced with all of these things, and when we pray, when we enter contemplative prayer, it comes sometimes into very broad relief and sharply focused, and that can be incredibly painful and take
Mm,
a long time to integrate
mm-hmm,
and come to terms with.
mm,
It can, but I've come to see that as a gift, actually.
Mm.
It's a gift
Yeah.
that we're given. I mean, we would never do that for ourselves.
Mm.
yes.
Yeah.
The,
Mm,
the ego self would never do that.
No.
no, it's
It would,
undermining of
it,
the ego,
it,
isn't
yeah, the ego self would just believe it was right.
it? Mm,
And seems to desire intoxication as well, because
Yes.
for what I don't know
Yeah.
why, maybe sensual intoxication. I don't know. But yeah, takes the focus off the things that the ego doesn't want to address.
mm-hmm.
Oh, why? But this seems to keep bringing back memories of my rather misspent youth.
Hmm.
All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, how different things are.
Your youth was, I suppose, 1960s, is it?
Uh,
Yeah. So the whole hippie movement and
Absolutely, yeah.
was that a hedonistic movement? It seemed to have desire for genuine peace and love. Um,
Yeah, but the way it was sought wasn't always very healthy.
mm, yeah. So there was a vomiting at some point.
Oh, yeah, plenty of that.
Mm. Yeah.
Chuckle about it, but really, I mean, it was a stage that one just goes through, really, I suppose.
I sense there was a time towards the end of the 60s and maybe the early 70s when a dream, a kind of collective dream, seemed to be floundering and being understood to have failed or to be failing, and a giving up and a and I guess that was a kind of vomiting, and then some of the hippies kind of gave up altogether, and then others became bank managers and all the things that they would have really um, struggled to believe they could do.
Yeah. Although others realised that the world of the senses couldn't offer what they were looking for, and that's when things like transcendental meditation actually became very popular um, as a different way of finding some peace and
Mm-hmm.
which incidentally has found its way back into church practice as well, hasn't it?
It has. It has.
The contemplative movement, anyway, within Christianity has engaged very much. For me, this conversation is very relevant because those first followers of Jesus were full of the dreams and hopes that perhaps the hippies were full of as well. And Jesus is teaching them and us, therefore, the way that is not going to destroy the true purpose, the true light. So teaching us to practice the Sabbath, and to live that prayer life, and to live from there rather than our hopes and dreams, and therefore the ways in which we might seek to manifest those through our political movement, or not that we have to be removed from all political engagement or all social engagement, far from it, but we do it from this home. Where do you dwell? And the hippies didn't really know where they dwelled, did they? They got lost looking for spirituality through drugs and quick ways. LSD, wasn't there? It was a quick way to bliss, and there's no quick way to anything.
They were intoxicated quite a lot, yes.
Yeah.
And then realised that's not the way.
Yeah.
Yes. It was a massive freeing up, wasn't it? After the war and so on, and necessary, really important, wasn't it? Which started a lot of things, as you're saying, Tim. Meditation, just how to get beside oneself, I suppose. How to shift out of a fixed condition. But I like that reference, really, to how it must have been around Jesus at the time of his life, Tim, and yes, how heady that must have been, and how one can understand in this context, the rather embarrassing things that Peter said, for example, that we heard in morning prayer this morning, that James and John saying, well, give us fire and we'll blast it down on them, or for not welcoming you, and things like that. That kind of quite sweet, really, in a way, but needing to find a way to mature, to be not lost, but to be worked on. And I suppose this is what the teaching that he's giving here in his unpredictable way, as we've said. Yes, how to reflect on oneself, as you said, Malcolm, how to see oneself mirrored in what we think of other people, and how to fast, how to find space and not fill it.
Well, we have another reading of the text and then move into a more contemplative mode, a more Lectio Divina mode. Shall we begin again?
Okay. So once again, we're reading from 24 to 28, Logion 24 to 28. His disciples asked, "Teach us about the place where you dwell, for we must seek it." He told them, "Those who have ears, let them hear. There is light within people of light, and they shine it upon the whole world. If they do not shine it, what darkness?" Yeshua said, "Love your brother and sister as your soul. Protect them as you do the pupil of your eye."
Yeshua said, "You see the sliver in your brother's eye, but you do not see the log in your own eye. When you remove the log from your eye, then you will see clearly enough to remove the sliver from your brother's eye." Yeshua said, "If you do not fast from the world, you will not find the kingdom. If you do not celebrate the Sabbath as a Sabbath, you will not know the Father."
Yeshua said, "I stood in the midst of the world and revealed myself to them in the flesh. I found them all intoxicated, not one of them was thirsty. And my soul grieved for the children of humanity, for they are blind in their hearts, they do not see. They came naked into the world, and naked they will leave it. At this time they are intoxicated. When they have vomited their wine, they will return to themselves."
Love your brother and sister as your own soul.
If you do not keep the Sabbath as the Sabbath, you will not know the Father.
When they have vomited their wine, they will return to themselves.
They came naked into the world, and they will leave it naked.
Remove the log.
Tell us about the place where you dwell. We must seek it.
I revealed myself to them in the flesh.
Elos.
Naked. vomited out.
People of light,
People of light, not intoxicated.
Love your brother and sister as your soul. Children of light.
fast from the world, fast.
Help your brother and your sister with the sliver when you've taken the log out.
They will return to themselves.
Themselves as people of light.
If you do not, what darkness?
The darkness of intoxication.
Vomited out. Keep the Sabbath as the Sabbath.
Roll the logs away. Keep you blind. Don't keep it dark.
For the third time, his disciples asked, "Teach us about the place where you dwell, for we must seek it." He told them, "Those who have ears, let them hear. There is light within people of light, and they shine it upon the whole world. If they do not shine it, what darkness?" Yeshua said, "Love your brother and sister as your soul. Protect them as you do the pupil of your eye."
Yeshua said, "You see the sliver in your brother's eye, but you do not see the log in your own eye. When you remove the log from your eye, then you will see clearly enough to remove the sliver from your brother's eye." Yeshua said, "If you do not fast from the world, you will not find the kingdom. If you do not celebrate the Sabbath as a Sabbath, you will not know the Father."
Yeshua said, I stood in the midst of the world and revealed myself to them in the flesh. I found them all intoxicated, not one of them was thirsty. And my soul grieved for the children of humanity, for they are blind in their hearts. They do not see. They came naked into the world, and naked they will leave it. At this time they are intoxicated. When they have vomited their wine, they will return to themselves. Well, I think we've reached the conclusion of this meditation, beginning in the intellect, moving to the heart, and then ending in silence. I don't feel anything more to say.
Thank you both.
Thank you.